Karen from Countyfairgrounds USA, countyfairgrounds.net. Welcome to today's podcast.
Hi, Mr. Martin. This is County Fairgrounds and Cool K in the Denver area. I understand you're a comedic entertainment at its very best. Is that true?
That is true.
Okay. Well, you know how I like to start this? I want to know if you've ever done anything else and how you got into it.
Well, I was an amateur magician in my childhood. Then I went to school and I was part-time magicking. And then I worked at McDonnell Douglas and I managed a magic shop. But I went full-time into performing in 1979.
Oh, you've been at it for quite a while. So have I. Okay.
Yep.
All right. So you do a lot of different kinds of things. You do comedy. You do hypnosis. How did you get into hypnosis? I mean, magic isn't hypnosis.
No. I grew up in a very kind of new agey household, and I was hypnotized the first time when I was about 9 years old, which is very unusual. But as I got into the magic, there were several magicians that I knew that also did hypnosis. I resisted it for many years because a lot of my very good friends are hypnotists, and, you know, the whole thing is you don't want to compete against your friends, even though we all do anyway. But finally, a friend of mine, Mark Savard out of Las Vegas, he convinced me that, you know, you really should. It'd be another tool in your toolbox. So I went to his hypnosis school about 8 years ago, and I've been doing hypnosis on the circuit pretty consistently for the past 5 to 6 years.
Okay. You didn't tell me how you got hypnotized as a 9-year-old. I'm curious.
I had some issues with sleeping, and my mother knew a chiropractor who was also a hypnotist, and so I was able to solve that problem through hypnosis.
Yeah, that's good. Chiropractors do everything, don't they?
A lot of them are nutritionists and so on, but yeah, and to this day, those relaxation techniques, I can fall asleep in less than 30 seconds at night. I very rarely have trouble going to sleep.
I'm a mother, too, and hypnosis and children, boy, that's something to think about. Okay, so, all right, so tell me some of your best memories.
Well, in the fair industry, it's just, there's a lot of great fairs out there. Tillamook County Fair in Oregon is just a one-of-a-kind. There are just so many of them out there. But I think my best memories have to do with the camaraderie with other entertainers. An example in Tillamook, it was the 100th anniversary of the Tillamook Creamery, which is where all the cheese is made, and the fair has a big connection to that. And they had a 100-year-old wheel of cheese that was $100. Well, all the entertainers got together. We bought this wheel of cheese. It's a small thing, and I was in my RV at the time, so we set up a table, and all the entertainers gathered around the table, and we had wine and cheese. That cheese was so good that we went back the next day and bought another one and did the same thing. So that was great. Another great memory, Great Falls, Montana. Usually Great Falls, I'll do a combination of strolling magic and then also shows. Well, it was kind of a slow day, and so it was kind of hard to draw crowds, so I kind of went back to my old restaurant magic days, and so I would just approach some tables. Well, I saw this woman with about 9 or 10 young children. We're talking kindergarten age and around that. And I approached the table, and the children seemed a little bit nervous because I'm a big guy. I'm 6 feet tall. So, but I into the performance, and then by the end of it, they were all having a great time with it and so on. And so then I finished up and walked away, and think anything more about it. Well, then a couple days later, the woman came back to the fair by herself, and she approached me and said, I really don't think you know what you were able to do. And I said, what do you mean? Those children were in the foster care system. They've all come out of very abusive situations, and so they were very they live in fear a lot of the time, and you being able to break down those walls so quickly and cause them to enjoy themselves was such a great thing for them. I'm just thanking you. And of course, a tear is coming to my eye as I describe this. You just don't know as an entertainer how many people you can affect on such a basic level. And that's our job. And that made me realize that. So it's a great memory.
Do you remember what your first, say, professional show was? What would you consider your first professional show?
My first professional show was a children's birthday party in La Palma, California. And I went over there in my 57 Ford Fairlane that my father had given to me. It was my first car. And I did the show and got paid, and then I was off to the races.
That's cool. And your first stage show?
My first stage show would have been at Knott's Berry Farm.
Okay.
I ran the magic shop there for a few years, and we had a employee sort of thing, and so that's when I was my first experience on a bigger stage.
Hey, what's with all these actors and actresses on your website?
Well, because I lived in Southern California, that's where I grew up. I had some connections through other agents and contacts to the television and movie industry, and so I did a lot of private parties for a lot of different stars, and I used to do wrap parties. That's where when a show comes to the end of the season, they'll have a big party. And usually most of the principals don't show up. It's mostly the crafts people and the camera people and that sort of thing. But on several occasions, I was able to run into different people of notoriety, and some of them actually hired me to do shows at their homes. Eddie Murphy hired me, and Annette Bening and Warren Beatty and several other people. Plus, there was a preschool at the time. I don't know if it's still running. It was at UCLA, and they had a preschool there, and it was frequented by a lot of stars and their children. And so I performed for Patricia Arquette and Nicolas Cage and several other stars that had their children there. So that was
okay. Okay. So you've been all over the country. What tell me some of the shows you've done.
Well, I've worked in Florida. I've worked all over Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, Nevada, Texas, Arizona, California, Oregon, the Dakotas, and I haven't been in the Northeast very often. I've done one show, I think, was in the Washington D.C. area, but and then I lectured and performed for the Magic Circle in Norway, and I went to Israel once. So it's been a lot of fun.
Wow, sounds like it. Now I have to ask this terrible question: have you had any bad experiences?
Well, you always have a few here and there, but I think the most alarming experience that happened to me, and it happened at a fair last summer. There was a fair, and there was a shooting incident, and what it turned out to be was just a domestic dispute that got out of hand. However, at the time when it was happening, I'm sitting there doing strolling, and I'm standing, and then all of a sudden I'm noticing people running, and a lot of them had absolute panic on their faces. So, of course, I'm not one to panic, so I just moved my rig over to the side so I didn't get trampled, and I waited to see what in the world was going on, and then I found a building to go inside. And then it just so happened there was a security person there, and so I was able to talk with the security person, and they described it as a domestic dispute that got out of hand. But in the meantime, of course, they had called the police, and the fairgrounds was well set up and practiced for this sort of thing. That entire fairgrounds emptied in less than 20 minutes, and then the cops were there, and then within an hour and a half, they were back open again. So it was that was a very alarming experience, to say the least.
I would imagine so, especially with what's been going on lately. Okay, so, yeah. Are there places that you would like to perform that you have not yet had the opportunity to?
Oh, absolutely. Iowa State Fair, would love to do that fair. And there's a few fairs on the East Coast. Plus, I've heard about New England. A lot of the smaller New England fairs are a lot of fun to perform for.
There's good fairs all over.
Well, yeah. Well, another one of my favorites is Alaska State Fair. I've had the joy of performing at that one for 4 times, and it's just wonderful.
Isn't it a little cold up there?
It can be cold. I've also been up there when it was 80 degrees, so it's in September. It's around usually around Labor Day.
You do not only you do stage performances, but you're a strolling magician. That's kind of unusual, isn't it?
It can be, but because I've got it to where I can do more close-up magic, or if I draw a bigger crowd, then I kick it up to a slightly larger sort of street magic mode, and I have my own little sound system in my little rig. It's one of those wagons you can get at Costco, and I've decorated it, and so I can start with a small crowd, draw it. Usually I don't hold the crowd longer than about 10 to 12 minutes because you don't want to block the breezeways. So that's how I do it.
Do you have any kids?
Yes, I have 2 boys and 6 grandchildren.
Oh my! What do these people all think of your doing magic?
Oh, they love it. They love it. But my younger son is an entrepreneur, so he's constantly saying, "Well, how much longer are you going to be performing, Dad? You know, you could come and work for me," and that sort of thing. But he doesn't. A lot of people just can't understand, especially the fair industry and what a camaraderie and, like, as my lovely wife coined the phrase, fair family, and that's kind of what it's like. There's some of these people I've known for 30 years.
Yep. Yep. I'm there with you. I mean, I've been to the IFE convention a few times, but I'm too old to go to that thing now because it's too much work. Oh, yes, it definitely is. So I do understand what you are saying. Okay, so do you have any advice for young guys and young girls coming up? Could they be magicians, and how they get into it?
Well, how they get into it, number one, it's a 2-part question. It's show business. There's the show, which you have to remain a family-oriented show. Don't get too edgy. Be approachable. All of those things are very, very important. And the business side is that's something that you're going to learn over time, and it's constantly changing. When I first got in the business, everything was by mail and personal phone calls. Now, a lot of these people you can't reach except by text messages. And even the conventions have changed. It used to be you'd go to the convention and people would walk up and talk with you. Well, now, in order to do a convention successfully, you have to do a lot of pre-convention work. You have to target the people that you're going after, find out where they're at, and try and schedule an appointment with them, even if it's only 5 minutes so you can introduce yourself. And just, be very, very casual and open. Don't use a high-pressure thing. Any kind of a newsletter or regular email, although not too regular. You want to make it like, maybe every 2 weeks, a month, something like that. But you don't want to seem too pushy, because a lot of the people in the fair who are buyers are not professionals; they're volunteers, and they don't take kindly to high pressure sales. So it's kind of a fine balance. And the fair industry is different than a lot of other industries, so you have to take all those things into consideration.
I don't suppose you remember the biggest show you've ever done.
Well, I've opened for several headliners. I'm going to say the biggest crowd, the biggest crowd might be the time I opened for Joe Diffie. I want to say, and Restless Heart was also a pretty big crowd. I opened for them once. And that's in the, between 10,000 or so, sometimes on the lower end. 5,000 to 6,000, but yeah, I've definitely done something over 10,000. Although, I never really pay attention. I'm just there to hit my mark, do the show, and get off stage.
Hey, so I see you're booked at some places already. So are the bookings coming in okay this year?
Well, yeah, we had to work really, really hard because with the whole COVID situation, nobody really knew what was going to happen. So. The first event that I'm doing is a winter event in Bend, Oregon, or actually Redmond, Oregon. And I've got 4 spring dates, and my summer schedule is decent. It's not stellar, but it's a good average. It's a good average for a summer season.
Okay, next question is how people reach you if they're interested in booking you.
My website is jmartinmagic.com, and obviously I'm on Facebook, Slightly Amazing, Seriously Funny, and my YouTube channel, Jeff Martin Magician. I have lots of video.
Okay, Mr. Martin, I've thoroughly enjoyed talking to you. It's been fun.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.